Saving is trash. Saving is stupid. It's not a feasible way of protecting your money. I mean, this is what you hear most of the gurus on YouTube and on Google, on Instagram say. I mean, they just bash saving. But then is saving actually better than investing? Well, let's get into the video and find out. But before we get into the video, I would like you guys to comment down below which you think is preferable, which you think is better, which one you actively do right now, saving or investing, just before we get into the video. So let's hop right to it. So before I give my verdict on which I think is better, saving or investing, we're going to talk about a few things first. We're going to talk about the definition of saving and investing. We're going to talk about the ways in which you can save or invest. We're going to talk about the apps that you can use to save or invest. We're going to talk about the advantages and disadvantages. And finally, we are going to talk about my verdict on which I think is preferable, saving or investing. So make sure you stick to the end to find out that. But if you want to skip the video, there are timestamps available. You can see them in the timeline or whatever, but there are timestamps, so you can just skip to whichever you prefer. But I would suggest that you watch everything till the end. So what exactly is saving? Saving is income not spent or consumption deferred. So income could vary. It could be money gotten from your business. It could be money from a relative. It could be your pocket money if you get things like that. And if you keep that for a specific period of time, it's termed as saving. So now, what is investing? Investing is when you put money into a financial scheme, property, a commercial venture for the purpose of achieving profit. So there are differences between saving and investing, and we'll talk about that later on, but that is the definition of both saving and investing. So now let's talk about the ways of saving and investing. We're going to start with saving. What are the ways or methods in which you can save? So there are two main methods, which is the traditional method and the modern method. So the traditional method could be using a piggy bank, or as we Nigerians like to call it, a kulu. So this is when you take part of your income and put it into these boxes or these objects and keep it there. And the way these objects are made, I'll put an image up on the screen, but the way these objects are made is they're not easily accessible. So you keep putting money, from time to time. You could have a specific time frame that you put it in. You could put it weekly, you could put it daily, or you could just put it whenever you have income. And they're made in such a way that you can access it easily, so that when you eventually need it, you can, either break it. Yeah, it's pretty much break it or destroy it, and then you can get your money that you've saved, and hopefully it would have added up to a lot, and you can use that for whatever it is you wanted to use it for. But there are more modern methods of saving, and this could go from the banks to particular saving platforms or websites. So let's start with banks. So the whole concept of a savings account is you put money inside a savings account for a specific period of time, and the bank would pay you a very, very little commission or interest. It's interest over a specific period of time. And the way the bank gets the money for that interest is the money that you put in that savings account, they lend it out to people who come to the bank to borrow money. And then they charge those people a higher interest than they would give you. So then the difference between the interest you get and the interest they charge the people who borrow the money is where the bank would keep their profit. So it's more so a savings account as opposed to an investment account, because yes, you do make interest after a specific period of time, usually annually or more, but the interest is so negligible that we would not consider it investing. But then if you want to go a bit further and not walk into the bank to open a savings account, there are different platforms in which you can save your money, and they would give you that same interest or commission, but you can do that all on your phone. So there are particular apps or websites that I use to save my money. I'll talk about that in a bit, but that is all on saving through the modern and the traditional method. So now down to investing. There are different ways in which you can invest your money, and we usually invest in assets. So assets could range from cryptocurrencies to real estate to stocks to currencies to bonds. Basically, there are so many assets in which you can invest your money in. And all of these will have a specific range from low to high returns. Obviously, the ones with higher returns would mean the risk would be more. But nevertheless, these are just a few of the assets in which you can invest in. So if you want me to go over these assets in a future video, make sure to leave a comment down below telling me which particular asset is you want me to go over, whether it be stocks, cryptocurrencies, Forex or currencies, and I will try my possible best to make a video on that. So now let's talk about the apps or platforms in which you can carry out both saving and investing. And as usual, we're going to start with saving. So for saving, these apps I personally use myself or have used in the past. So remember, the first thing we talked about was a savings account through a bank. So you could walk up to any bank, provided you're 18 or older, and open a savings account and just broker a deal with them. But if we're talking about apps that you can download right now on your phone and start to use, the first on my list would be PiggyVest. This is a great app for saving because what you can do is you can lock your money for a specific period of time and they would give you an interest on it. But like I said, it's saving, so the interest is not much. It could be 1%, it could be 0.5%, depending on how long you keep your money there. I would leave a link in the description if you want to check that out. But this is where I do all of my savings. I just lock my money for a specific period of time, so I do not have access to it. So another platform in which I use to save my money is the KUDA banking app. And yes, you heard that right, it's a banking app. So it's more so a multi-purpose app. But the difference between KUDA and every other bank is it's an online bank. So they do not have a physical place where you can go and deposit your money and all these kind of things. They do have a building where you can go and make inquiries, customer care and all of that, but I've never been there because you can do every single thing online. So KUDA, like I mentioned, is a banking app, but they have a saving platform. So there's a particular feature in which you can set it to that as you spend your money, it would save a specific amount of that money as well. So it's a great way to manage your income because as you're spending, you're saving. So you never actually exhaust all your money. So they also have like a budget feature where you can budget your money monthly so you never lose track of the things that you have to spend your money on. Things like bills, your expenses, healthcare, all these kind of things. So these are the two apps in which I use to save my money. I'm sure there are so many other apps that you can use, so you can Google all of that, but I will leave these two in the description below. You do get benefits from it if you register through my link, and I also get benefit as well, but at no extra cost to you. Now let's go over some of the platforms you can use to start to invest today. So we start with stocks. For stocks, I'm not really, into that right now. I do not have any investments in stocks, but the app I use for crypto can also be used for stocks, and it's Accrue. So the link will be in the description and you can use this to invest in stocks. Then for cryptocurrencies, you can use Accrue like I mentioned, and you can use Binance as well. Binance definitely is more popular than Accrue, so you could get the link in the description to all of these platforms. Then for real estate, I stumbled upon an app recently, or a platform very recently, and it's Cryptstock. So you can invest in real estate if that's something you're looking to get into, but at a very, very low price. I think the minimum you can invest in is 6,000 naira into, properties of millions, worth millions of naira. So it's a very great way to start to invest. You could check the link in the description for that. Then my final asset that I'd be talking about is Forex/currencies. And I currently use two platforms to trade the Forex market, and it's FXTM and OctaFX. I've used both of them for a very long period of time, and both of them are really, really great platforms. So like I said, all of these platforms will be in the link in the description. You can check all of them out and get started on investing right away. So the first advantage of saving on my list is it helps during emergencies. Now, the purpose of saving is to use it at a later date. So if you're the kind of person that saving is a norm or part of your lifestyle, so if at all there is an emergency of some sort someday, you have money aside kept for that. Another advantage of that is it limits your debt. Now, if you're always saving, like if you're constantly saving, then you almost never find yourself incurring debt, except it's good kind of debt. But you almost never find yourself incurring it because you always have money kept aside. So if at all it's something that you have to pay, really, really quickly, it's a debt that you have to pay off really fast, then you have money set aside to do just that. Then the final advantage on my list is it helps to finance gratification. This is honestly one of my favorite advantages of saving, is because at some point, after you've saved for a long period of time, you can then break your piggy bank if you're using the traditional method, and you can finance gratification. You can go out with your friends. If you are someone that's so big on saving and you save a lot, then you could travel out. It helps to finance gratification, which, in general leads to peace of mind. I talked about 3 advantages of saving, but obviously there are so much more advantages to saving. You could list some of them in the comment section if you have any. So now let's go over to the disadvantages of saving. So the first disadvantage on my list would be low interest rates. So now we spoke about this when we were talking about the savings account. So if you're using the modern method of saving, then more often than not, there would be a little bit of interest. Now, this interest rate, like I mentioned before, is extremely low. So another disadvantage of saving is access and availability. Now, we have so much access to our money, and it's a very, very huge temptation. So you find that so many people cannot save for a long period of time because they always have access to that money. Things that are not emergencies, but we would tag emergencies, we would take a bit of money from that, and if we constantly keep taking, then we can never save to the extent where we can enjoy the fruit of our saving. So this is a very, very big disadvantage of saving because the temptation is just too high. Then, as far as I'm concerned, this is one of the most important disadvantages of saving, and it's depreciation. Now, when you save your money, especially if you do so for a long period of time, because every single currency has a certain depreciation rate, your money would not be the same value as it was at the start of the time you began to save. So if I saved 10,000 naira at the start of the year, we're currently in June at the point of making this video, the 10,000 naira at the start would not be of the same value. It's the exact same amount, don't get me wrong, but it's not the same value, and this is a disadvantage of saving. We've talked about saving and the advantages and the disadvantages, so let's move over to investing. So the first advantage on my list is there's a potential for long-term returns. Now, I say long-term because investing is not something that you can, start to make returns right away as soon as you get into it. It's always a long-term investment. Don't get me wrong, there are financial schemes that can start making money right away, but if we're talking of safe and secure and, feasible, basically, we are talking about long-term investments, and these can potentially build wealth because of the amount of time that you leave it in the market, and not just because of that, but because with time, money compounds. So as time goes on, your income would keep increasing and building on each other. I can make a video on this on a later date, but this is one of the advantages of investing. The second advantage of investing is it outperforms inflation. I mean, this is so great because, like I mentioned earlier when we were talking about savings, there is always a devaluation of a country's currency year after year. But what investing does, it combats that because of the ROI, that's the return of investment, every single year. So let's talk about the S&P 500. It's an index fund that accumulates all the top 500 companies in the US. So the S&P 500 on an average would give around 7 to 8%. So if you make 7 to 8% of whatever it is that you've invested in, that money that you put in the S&P 500 has been protected against inflation because the inflation rate is much lower than 7 to 8% of whatever it is you invested in. So after doing some research, I realized that my previous statement about combating inflation with the S&P 500 that gives annually 7 to 8% on average only works in developed countries like the US. And the reason is because their inflation rate annually is much lower than 7 to 8%, at least at the point of making this video. So if you are in Nigeria and you want to combat inflation, you can do either of the two things. You can either look for a source of income that earns you in foreign currency like dollar, pound, or the euro, or you can look for an investment scheme that would give you way higher than 7 to 8% because the annual inflation rate in Nigeria is 15 to 17% annually. That's extremely alarming. So if you can find an investment scheme that would give you higher than that, then you would be safe from depreciation and inflation. Then my final advantage of investing is it can potentially provide regular income. There are so many people that have their income coming from strictly investing, and this is my goal at some point in life, to have my investment portfolios, whether it's crypto, stock, real estate, whatever it is I venture into at in future dates, to have the returns from those investments pay for my expenses. And this is how wealth is built. When you have your returns paying for your expenses, then you have basically become financially free, and this is my goal. So like I mentioned, for saving, I only listed 3 advantages, but obviously there are so much more advantages to investing. You can comment some of them down below, but let's move over to the disadvantage. So the first disadvantage, and I'm sure all of you had this in mind, is the potential to lose all your investment. This is the major disadvantage of investing, because yes, as much as the advantages are great and the benefits are cool and all of that fun stuff, you can lose all your money. So the rule of thumb behind this, or the rule of thumb that I use and a lot of investors use, is don't invest money you are not willing to lose. So if it's something that you need for your expenses, debts, whatever the case may be, do not invest it into the market, because you have to think and assume that the money you would invest could potentially lose, and if you're not satisfied with losing that amount of money, it should not be invested into any market. Then my final disadvantage of investing is it can potentially be one of the slowest ways to build wealth. You do build wealth, potentially that's over a long period of time depending on the asset that you invest in, but it is one of the slowest ways to build wealth. So that is all for my advantages and disadvantages of both saving and investing. So now let's get into my verdict on which I think is most preferable or which I think is better. Well, I personally think both of them are equally great. I think I did a poll on my Instagram. If I find it, I'll probably put up more people tilted towards the investing side of things. That's fine, but not everyone has the same situation, so not everyone can do the same things. I personally think saving and investing are equally great because there are situations that are so different. For example, I wasn't investing up until recent because of my income increase, but prior to that, I could not invest because every money I had, I was either using it or had to save it because I needed to do something later. So let's say you want to get into a business. You can't invest all your income or all the money that you have into the market because you cannot access it easily. But if you put that into a savings account, then you could put that into the business, which could potentially yield profit. Then you could start to invest. So you see the differences between saving and investing. So it all depends on your situation. Right now, I'm cutting back on my investing because I need to acquire as much cash as I can to later on invest in certain financial schemes. But obviously, if you're someone that earns a regular income, like you know how much you're going to get every single month, then you could start to invest right away, because then you could just take a certain chunk of that income and put into the investment portfolio. Now, before we go on, I know most of the people watching me would not have millions of naira in their account, and that's all good. You don't have to. I didn't start with that. I started with investing $20, $30, $50. That's what I started to invest with. So you could start small, and yes, the lower your investment, the lower your returns. But what this does is it starts to train your mind into investing. So when you do acquire a lot of income, investing is no longer new to you. So let's just summarize all of it. What are the things that you should look at if you want to save or invest? Well, if you have a big project or you have a plan or a business that you're working on, then investing might not be for you if you do not have a regular source of income. What you want to do is acquire enough cash to put it into that business if it's the type of business that requires money, and then you could start that looking to use the returns from that particular business to fund your investment account. But if you're someone that earns a regular income, then you could start to invest right away, because you could take a certain amount of that money, 20-30%, whichever the case may be, and put it into an investment portfolio. But one thing you should always do before investing is try as much as possible to research on whatever asset class it is you wanted to get into. Do not just follow it blindly, because you will get into a pickle. So that's it for today, guys. Tell me which one in the comment section you are currently doing. Like I mentioned, I'm currently saving all the money that I can, and plus school is coming, so I have to do that. But tell me which one you're currently doing in the comment section. And do not forget to like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you get notified every single time I post a new video, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Oh, I forgot to mention, for you to save or invest, you obviously would need money. And if you're looking for a way to make that money so you could get started with saving or investing, I do have a video on that, on 5 ways to make money as a teenager. So you could check that out. See you guys in the next one.